let's do another movie plot. This time, we're going back to 2005. We're going to do yours, mine, and ours. So, start out this one is a widowed U.S. Coast Guard Rear Admiral named Frank Beardsley moves back to his hometown of New London, Connecticut with his 8 children and from his first marriage. And Frank Beardsley he runs a tight ship with his family. And being as Frank works with the Coast Guard, his family knows a lot about respect, and they live by the rules. Meanwhile, this woman named Helen North, who is a widowed handbag designer, who has 10 kids, 4 biological and 6 who are adopted. They unexpectedly encounter each other one night at a restaurant. And Frank is on a date with this woman named Claudia, who is suggested by his friend and Daryl, who also works with the Coast Guard. While Claudia is away from the table for a minute, and Frank spots Helen in the restaurant, and they talk. And then they encounter each other again at their 30-year high school reunion, instantly rekindling in their old sparks. Frank and Helen quickly decide to marry in a private ceremony, shocking both sets of children. They move into a new home on the same property where they shared their first kiss. And you wouldn't believe it. They moved into a freaking lighthouse. A legit lighthouse. They're joined by the North children's numerous pets, including a pot-bellied pig, and Franklin's housekeeper, Mrs. Munyon. It soon becomes apparent that Frank's very regenerated view of doing things clashes with Helen's more free-spirited, laissez-faire attitude. Their respective children, shocked by the news of their quick wedding, initially do not get along well, even turning a planned lighthouse renovation project into an all-out paint fight that started when Michael took his shoe, threw it from the top of the lighthouse, and it landed into a giant thing of wet paint, splashing a Beardsley kid and a North kid, and they just escalate the fight through the entire house and get other members of the family involved. No, this happened when Helen and Frank were not at the house. They were out going at loading at stuff at different stores. But they came back in the middle of this fight. That night, Frank's oldest son, William, calls a meeting at the top of the lighthouse where the spotlight is. He calls in the siblings and explains that they can rid themselves of their new situation by joining forces to make Frank and Helen's respective philosophical differences apparent, which will cause them to fight. However, while doing so, they gradually begin to bond, attending their siblings' soccer games and helping William in his class president campaign. A short time later, Frank and Helen attend a formal Coast Guard dinner with his superior, Commandant Sherman, officially offers him the opportunity to be his successor. He respectfully declines it, citing both his obligations to the Coast Guard Academy and his new family. Meanwhile, back at the house, the young children have a food fight upstairs in the bedroom and the older ones throw a big wild party downstairs, which quickly grows uncontrollable. When Frank and Helen return to find the place in total chaos, Frank is downright furious. And while also upset, Helen's more laid-back approach only angers Frank even more. This causes their worst fight yet. And the children, realizing how happy Frank and Helen have been together, begin to realize that they may have pushed things way too far. The next day, Frank informs Helen that he has decided to take the position as commandant after all. And they schedule a family meeting to inform the kids. As the children return home from school, jubilant over having defended their younger siblings from the bullies, and with the news of William having won the class election, Frank quickly deflates the mood by telling them of his decision to accept the new position. Feeling guilty for having torn him and Helen apart, they set about undoing their mistakes, with the younger children enlisting Helen to aid in their efforts. Together, the older ones launch the family's boat in an effort to intercept Frank, thereby fulfilling his previous dream of having an all-family sailing team that failed earlier. But he is convinced that Helen no longer wants to be with him, until he sees her turn on the lighthouse spotlight, referencing a story he told her earlier about a beautiful female lighthouse keeper. And with that, they dock and return to shore, and they successfully reunite. They apologize, and they marry once again, this time with the children involved, as well as some Coast Guard friends. There you have it. It's nothing better than a Coast Guard family, a laid-back family, and overall, a big family.